Hello and welcome to another episode of PerryPOD. In this week's episode I interviewed Duncan Slater. Duncan was blown up in Afghanistan in Helmand province when his convoy of vehicles was ran over by an IED, and he subsequently ended up losing his legs, and he goes on to tell this incredible story of his resilience, his outcomes from that, going on to race to the South Pole, to running in the Marathon des Sables, which you can hear all about, and it's an incredible story, a superhuman feat of achievement, something that very few people get to do, and Duncan has done this with missing two legs and such an incredible mindset that he shares. We go on to talk about all of his achievements, his advocacy for new prosthetic techniques here in the UK, and also just have a general chit chat, and it's great to get to know Duncan and share his story. I'm sure you'll enjoy the next hour and a half of hearing about Duncan and hearing what he's done and achieved, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this week's episode of PerryPOD. A quick word from our sponsors, the Turmeric Co. The Turmeric Co's products are quickly becoming the gold standard for individuals who are searching for products that can positively impact their holistic health, with each ingredient selected offering extraordinary nutritional value. From the moment of launch, the Turmeric Co's primary goal was to help fulfil the lives of its customers through high quality, effective yet natural turmeric-based shots. A range of proprietary blends in a shot format offers a convenient solution for people using turmeric as a regular part of their nutrition. No powders and no low quality filler ingredients such as apple juice or water. Only premium, raw and absorbable turmeric root is used in every shot, with a combination of other superfood ingredients making this range an effective yet delicious option for people to support their daily health through natural nutrition. If you want to see these benefits for yourself, make sure you use code PERRY10 at checkout. You'll receive 10% off, you'll get 100% of the rewards, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe so we can get more episodes of PerryPOD out in the future. So thanks so much for agreeing to do this.
Mate, no problem at all, mate. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's Mark shared your story with me, and I was like, wow, this guy's first of all an absolute lunatic for half the stuff he's done, and I thought he's a pretty cool guy as well. So yeah, I'm really appreciative of you coming on.
Oh, mate, chuffed to bits. Honestly, mate, yeah, thanks. Mate, I don't know. I think it's just one of them things you end up just getting on with things, mate, don't you? And you just like yourself, mate. You just end up getting on, and then and sort of cracking on, and it's funny where it takes you. I think you couldn't have mapped it out, could you? Like all the things that you've ended up going and doing and being part of. It's a funny one.
Exactly, and obviously we'll touch on your great story a bit later on. But as you said, I think that's a great way to start off the conversation. Is you can't actually map out your life; it just sort of unfolds in front of you. You just got to get on with it, haven't you?
It is, mate. It's funny, the sort of like hard stops in life, isn't there? So family and sort of, I don't know, kids, job, things that you can't really shift about, but then all the rest of it is the bit that mixes it all up. So I suppose being an amputee is, obviously I wasn't an amputee from birth, so it's something that you learn, but it wasn't something that I thought about. It wasn't like a downgrade. I never looked at being an amputee as a downgrade in life. I always thought of it as a sort of, right, okay, great, but it's like an upskill, if anything. You're learning to live, to function, with some add-ons, and that's kind of how I kind of took to it, really, because there was so many people at the time when I was in hospital that were amputees, and I don't know. I know everyone's got a different mindset and stuff, but for me, there was a lot of people with a sort of, oh no, it's all over now, and I've never really liked that mentality of you can't ever write off the rest of your life because something's happened today. I just don't like that attitude, really. And I think that's how I sort of kind of went about it. And also, it's like anything, when you research stuff too, when I was in hospital and it was becoming apparent I was going to be an amputee, I was like, right, let's look at amputees. Let's look at sort of how they get on, what they do, how they adapt, what can they do. And before you know it, mate, you're like, right, I like what he does, I like what she does, I like what they do. And I think, right, okay. And I just kind of looked at it as a resource, if anything. I'm not sure if that sounds quite cold or what, I don't know, but I just thought the more information, the better, and then make your own plan. And that's how I did it.
I think that's a great way to look at it. Obviously, I mean, I consider myself so lucky that I was born like this, you know, because I've not had to go through like the likes of yourself, what you've went through, and other people surrounded you that they went through, you know, some traumatic, painful experience. So I find myself like incredibly lucky. But the fact that, you know, as you just said, you used it as a tool, you know, and you did your research on, like, you know, what amputees are actually capable of, and that's pretty much anything, you know. And I think that's a great way to look at it, as you said, because some folk, they do, and, you know, it's difficult, as you said, everyone responds differently, but, you know, some folk, it does obviously affect them tremendously, because no matter your outlook, you know, no matter how positive you are, it's a massive change to your life, you know, going from being able-bodied to losing any limb, you know, never mind, you know, you've lost obviously both legs, so it's a big shift. But the fact that you just said you did your research, you know, and you get attacked by the dog.
Sorry.
Who's that we've got there attacking you?
That's Peggy, mate, the wonder dog.
Oh, she's pretty cute though.
Mate, she's like bloody Velcro, mate. She's got to be right beside you. She's a nightmare.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Good company, mate. Training partner.
Really? Get out on the runs.
Yeah, she loves it. She loves coming out. Unless it's raining. She's a fair weather dog, mate. So.
Oh yeah, a bit like myself.
Yeah, me too.
A bit like myself. It's just the mindset is something that that's probably the hardest part to learn, I would say, you know, because you know that you're going to get the support from learning how to walk and the rehab and all the physio and the doctors around you are going to do everything they can, but the mindset it's almost you're almost on your own for that, you know, because it's living inside your own head, coming to grips with the fact that you've lost a limb, you've lost two limbs, and it can be very difficult for people, and I understand that, you know, and that's why when I look at my own experiences, I'm like, geez, how lucky to have, you know, to been born this way, that it's just been like, right, on you go, get up and go and get on with it, you know. And so, as you said, like the research that you did there, I'm assuming that for want of a better word, because I hate throwing this word in, but like I'm assuming that sort of inspired you to be like, you know what, I can do whatever I want.
It did, mate. It was more. This sounds really bad, but I think I'd gone through my sort of life or career, I suppose, and you know, it's like anyone in the 9-to-5 lives, or you know, I suppose being in the military, it's a little bit more intense. But I spent all this time. I never really wondered about amputees, disability. You know, how do people get on with the disabilities? I've never even thought about it. And I think when I was staring down the barrel of it, I was thinking, I need to know. I need to know. And it's so frustrating that when you become an amputee, nobody sort of teaches you, you know what I mean, to be an amputee. Suddenly you're in this world of, it's all different language, it's all different references, and you're sort of thinking, but how, and plus you don't know, like, what is the state at when you're comfortable? What is the state of when do you class your prosthetics as they fit? And you know, how, like, as an amputee, am I only ever going to be allowed to walk 5 kilometers? Is that really good, or is that bad? Or there's no benchmarks anywhere, because the amount of, sounds quite depressing, mate, but a lot of times you go to a prosthetics appointment and you come out and you're absolutely destroyed, because you're thinking, well, I haven't even got legs right now. They can't fit me. It's painful. It's this, it's that, it's the next thing. And there's so many negative sort of things that come your way. By the time you do get a set of legs and you start walking, you know, you walk so much that your legs become uncomfortable again and you need a new set. And it's just constant back and forth, back and forth. And, you know, for people that have really bad amputations, like really high up amputations and stuff like that. I mean, like genuinely, mate, I'm a bit of a. I don't even consider myself as like a difficult amputee. You know, it's a bit of a. It's nothing really. When you look at some of the guys that, you know, that they've lost things high up, and there's no flesh there to make a socket around. I think, how the hell are they going to make it around the shops? How are they going to do all this sort of stuff? But they do. And so you look at those guys and you think, hang on a minute, right, if they're doing that, right, I really need to raise my game and sort of stop whinging about, you know, poor Dunk. Poor Dunk's having a bad day because his leg's not fitting too great and stuff. And I think that's a good way of, it sort of galvanizes you a bit, and it gives you like a little bit of a bar of measure. You know, you sort of think, well, all right, is it a bad day? Not really. You know, come on. You know, and it's like you said, you've got all these special people around you, physiotherapists. You've got people telling you how to work out, how to get stronger, how to improve your life. And you know, you don't really get that in any other sort of part of your life, do you, where you've got so many people taking an interest. So I kind of looked at it as well as it was like an opportunity. I've got one opportunity to get this right, and then I'll just move on. And it's as simple as that. And I think outside sort of family helped as well. You know, I had my little girl was a few months old by the time I was amputated, and she was kind of like my, not inspiration, but she was like, I want to be a dad. I want to walk her to school. I want to take her out on the bikes. I want to teach her to cycle. I want to do all these different things. I'm not going to let this stand in the way, because I've seen other people do things that lead me to believe that it doesn't have to stand in my way. So I kind of just use things like that as sort of lifelines, really. That kind of worked for me.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what, you know, especially when you go through such a major change in your life, you need something to sort of like anchor yourself back down and be like, you know what, right, that's my target, that's my goal. And as you said, that was your little girl, you know, and you know, you said it's not your inspiration. That's your focus. You know, you're going to walk her to school. You're going to teach her how to ride a bike, do everything with her, and she's going to have daddy. She's not gonna have someone sitting in a chair looking at her, you know, feeling sorry for themselves because they've given up or they've not tried. You know, you're going to do everything. So I think that's absolutely incredible. You know, so obviously your mindset is naturally very strong. You know, that's easy to see and to hear straight away. But is that something that's was sort of molded in the army, or did it start earlier on? Like, so what was life like growing up for you?
Well, I'm from sort of a bit further north than you, mate. I'm up sort of the Black Isle, north of Scotland, and mate, I loved living up where I grew up. You know, it was a great, fantastic place. Pretty sort of, it was a bit out in the sticks, which is good. You know, a great place to run around like an absolute lunatic and just enjoy life. But then when I got to school, I just wasn't. It wasn't that I was. It wasn't that I wasn't clever or anything like that. I just wasn't engaged at school, mate. You know, and I think when you go to school in the 80s and the 90s, it's very different from when I dropped my little girl off at school now. You know, it's totally different. And I just kind of fell behind. I got bullied at school a fair amount. I was quite tall for my age, quite skinny, and but I never really let it faze me too much. You know, I just kind of thought, well, just get on with that. And I don't know whether that had a little bit of a hand in it, mate. You know, just keep going, keep your mouth shut, and don't worry about it too much. And when it came to joining up, I wanted to join up just to have a bit of an adventure, really, mate. I didn't really know where it was going to take me. I just thought, well, just join up, see what happens, and I did, and I enjoyed the military for what it was. You know, I enjoyed just meeting different people, traveling around, going on different sort of operations. It was busy, and it was quite life defining in times. You know, that you go through some hard some hard times, but it's all shared. You know, it's not in isolation. You work with some fantastic people, and they all go through it themselves. So it's quite a good. Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time in the military. You know, I really did. But the truth of the matter is, mate, that you don't tend to go to the nicest places in the world. You know, you tend to go to like the sort of the hot spots, don't you? So I spent a lot of time in Iraq and Afghanistan, a little bit in the Balkans. And that was kind of the areas that we all worked in the sort of 14, 15 years that I was in. So you kind of learn quite quickly that when you go to somewhere for 6 or 7 months on operations, that, you know, it's dangerous for a reason, and it's dangerous, and you're there because it's dangerous. And, you know, everyone is at risk from the second you get there till the second you get on the aeroplane to come home. But it's a risk that you live with, and it sounds really bizarre, but you learn to revel in that. You know, if that's your job, if that's where you work and that's what you do, you need to be good at it. You need to be competent. You need people to trust you, and you need to trust people. So the bonds that you make are quite good. You know, they're really strong. But then the downside of it is people get killed and injured, mate. You know, and that's a real downside of it. And unfortunately, with that sort of stuff, you tend to be there when it happens. So you see firsthand what happens, and that has a lasting effect, because you're trying at all costs to not make that stuff happen. You know, you're trying to minimize that. You're trying not, you know, for people to be killed, try not for people to be injured. You don't want that to happen. So it's a strange life, but it's a good life. And I can understand why people suffer when they get out, because there's a big loss of direction and camaraderie, and you know, you're not with those friends anymore. But it's good, mate. I enjoyed it. I loved it.
Yeah, and so when you're in, you know, those harsh sort of nitty-gritty environments, and as you said, you know, obviously terrible things happen to friends and colleagues, and is it difficult to not sort of, I guess there must be at some point when you get into the mindset of what if this happens to me, or do you try and block that out as much as possible? Does that, you know, would that take too much of an impact on the job that you're there to do, or is it naturally just quite a human thing to think about that in that situation?
I think you tend to think about it at the most awkward times for you. So like it tends to be, you know, if you get the chance to get some sleep, just when you're sort of like kind of relaxing and going to sleep, you kind of think, that was a bit of a close one today. Hang on, what if I got hit today? What if happened to me? You know, what if tomorrow it's a bit closer? What? And it's horrible, mate. You tend to do the what ifs all the time, but you tend to do it away from the blokes. You know, you don't really tend to do it in front of them. Definitely when you know, I was a sergeant, so I tended to be responsible for about 30-ish guys. And what tends to happen is, mate, it tends to go the other way. You tend to sort of, you can't stop worrying about the blokes. You know, you tend to have this horrible feeling all the time where you become like an overcautious mother, you know, and you're kind of like, right, keep an eye on them, don't do this, don't do that. And the worse it gets, the more casualties you take, the more that you tend to become like that, and you tend to forget yourself in a sense, because you think, I don't want that guy getting injured. I don't want that guy. He's going home in 2 weeks. He's got a baby on the way. He's got this, he's got that. And you tend to do that, mate. And I think that's the human response in a stressful situation, that you tend to worry about others quite a lot more.
Yeah, I think, you know, to hear that selfless approach, you know, it's just, for me, that's something that, you know, you wouldn't even think of. You'd think it's just, you know, you go in, you get a job done, and actually, as you said, you're like one of probably the most stressful babysitter there is. You know, you're there looking after boys.
Big time.
Yeah, you're there looking after boys and girls that have got families and friends, you know, and as you said, you, in that leadership role, you end up forgetting about your own, back home, you end up dealing for these boys and girls that they're doing what they're doing. So, I think that's an incredible, mindset, because it'd be very, in those situations, I'm assuming it would be very easy to be incredibly selfish and to not think of others, and get caught up in, as you said, what if it was me? What if I did this or did that? So it's, for me, that's just incredible to hear. But is there any way in which your accident, because you were, was it, I did a bit of research, was it 13 vehicles in a sort of convoy, and you were in the last vehicle?
Yeah. I was the 13th one, mate. Unlucky for some. Yeah. So I was basically, as we were driving down this road, we were working in a location where there were a lot of roadside bombs. And if I'm honest, mate, what we were doing was it just wasn't something that you'd see in one of these action movies or anything like that. It was just literally driving down a road early in the morning. And my vehicle was the one that triggered this roadside bomb. So it went off underneath me. And if you sort of paced back and had a look at everything beforehand, nothing would have led you to believe that there would have been that roadside bomb where it was. Typically, it's somewhere that it's not obvious, but it's somewhere that you would think, hang on, we need to stop. We need to have a look at this. We need to not go past there. We need to get our detectors out and have a little look, and it just wasn't like that. It was, I mean, in all intents and purposes, and I genuinely mean this, they played a blinder, mate, putting it where they did. It was perfect. So they did the job that they wanted to do, and they completely destroyed the vehicle. And, obviously I was badly injured, but the two guys that were on the vehicle with me, the guy that was sat beside me was absolutely fine, which is just, it's amazing, isn't it? It's great that he walked away. The young lad that was behind me in the machine gun turret, so he was like directly behind me, he came out of the turret, and he perforated an eardrum, and he was a bit understandably shaken up. So he came on the helicopter with myself and got checked out. But again, he was all right. He had everything. He was okay. And which is, if it's going to happen like that, mate, that's kind of what you want. So for me, that was good, in a sense. But obviously not so good for me.
Kind of just when you've spoke about that sort of leadership role and saying, if it's going to happen like that, that was the best way it could have happened in a sense. You got no fatalities. Your boys aren't overly injured. Okay, perfect. If you're done, that's going to hurt. But your boys aren't overly injured, so you've got to be chuffed with that. And I think that sort of encompasses that leadership mentality that you've got. What if anyone's going to take the brunt of it, it's going to be me. I'm the man in charge. My boys are going to be all right. And I think that's incredible. And I think it also just goes to show the fact that the amount of gear you've got when you're out there that protects you, it's obviously doing its job. It's doing something, because that could have been a lot worse.
Mate, big Simon. Look, I know people you'll either get you get two sides. You'll either get people that say, we needed better equipment, we needed better stuff, we didn't have the right kit and equipment, and I honestly, mate, I can't really shed light on that. I don't know about that. I can honestly say that every time we went out on ops, I never felt that that we didn't have the right kit. I never felt like that. I always felt, we've got pretty much the best that we can have, and that's fine. That's all right. And like you said, mate, I mean, the IED, the roadside bomb that hit us, if I'm totally honest, mate, it should have caused a lot more damage than it did. And it's testament to the kit and equipment. We were lucky, but then the kit played its part, and we all survived. So you just can't buy that, mate. You can't.
Exactly. It's the last thing that anyone wants is people not coming home. And as you said, the best result was that we all made it out. So I think that's great. But would I be right in saying, so you didn't lose your legs on explosion, did you? You had the legs for a while, and then there was complications. Is that right?
Yeah. So what sort of happened at the the day I got blown up was the bomb went off directly underneath me. So if you imagine like the sort of shock wave, the blast shock wave, the vehicle crushed my legs, sort of my ankles, feet, and all the rest of it were really just, they were just completely destroyed. But they were, it sounds bad, but they were kind of like all together, like whole, if you know what I'm saying. So they weren't, it's not like they were bleeding and all the rest of it. So it was like a compression injury, and then the rest of the compression sort of broke my lower back, my ribs were broken, left arm, left shoulder blade, and all the rest of it. So it was, when I landed, so it threw me out the vehicle, and I landed, and the ground out there in the summer is so hard baked sort of sand and mud. It's like concrete, so when you land on that, it's gonna hurt. So I think that caused a few injuries too. So it took them a while to sort of figure out what was happening. So when I eventually got back to hospital, and they kind of had a good look at me in the UK, they said, look, yeah, well, they put casts on my legs and just were like, look, that's not the priority at the minute. The priority is you've got a spinal injury, you've got this, that, and the other. So they dealt with all the really sort of important stuff. Had they not done what they did with my spine, there would have been real sort of problems kind of later on, possibly being paralyzed and stuff. So I'm grateful, that's what they did. They knew what they were doing. They were brilliant. They were really, really good at what they did. But after this sort of 5 months in hospital, they said, look, we need to get you off to rehabilitation now. And I was like, I was in a wheelchair at the time. They said, look, we're going to get you down to rehab and see where this goes. And I was like, yeah, great. Well, I'll be up and walking and running and doing stuff. And the doctor was like, no, mate, you obviously didn't get the memo here. It was like, no. And he was like, look, you need to realize that you're going to be confined to a wheelchair now for the rest of your life. And your military career is over. And it all came like in a short, sharp shock. It was like, right, just so you know. And it kind of floored me, for a second, because my wife was there beside me when this guy was telling me, and I was like, what? And it was like, right, okay. And I just said, like, well, I don't agree. So I'm just going to go and do my thing. And, the medical science was right, but there's the human factor, mate,
Yeah, I think, it's one thing, as you said, the medical side of things is very rarely wrong. And then the one factor that can never be sort of medicated is the mindset. It's actually the amount you can overcome from adversity just through sheer willpower and determination alone is incredible. You said in one fell swoop, you've not only been told that you've lost your livelihood, your job in the military, you've lost your ability to walk, you've lost your ability to live the life that you wanted to live. And actually your first response to that was, right, well, we're going to see about that, and you weren't going to let that define you. And I think that's incredible. For someone like myself, I can't imagine what that would be like, because I don't recall at any point being a kid being told you're not going to walk, or you're not going to play, or you're not going to run around with your big brothers, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that. I believe possibly my parents might have been told that, but that was never trickled down to me. That was just go be a kid and just go enjoy life and have fun, and I think to have that experience of never being told that directly made me just curious and a bit explorative about, right, I'm going to try this and do that. But whereas on the flip side, you've been like almost slapped in the face with that news, like, you're not doing this. And I think that's just that to me, that's incredible, because that, knowing the way that I think about things, if someone was to tell me you can't do something, for me straight away that would be right. Same response to yourself, right? Well, we're going to see about that. But to be told something as major as what you were told, your livelihood's gone, your legs are gone, you're not going to do this, you're not going to do that, like, to have that instant sort of bounce back and resilience to say, right, you know what, I'm going to almost give you sort of twos up, you know what I mean? You're going to see about it.
Exactly, mate.
That's incredible, mate. That's incredible.
Well, thanks, mate. But I also sort of think sometimes I'm not sure in that instance what is the right response, you know, like, because I think, you know, sometimes you sit and think about things, you think, had I just gone, oh, right, okay, I'll accept that then, and I'm not going to basically try. I'm not going to try and improve. I'm just going to do what you just said. I'll sit in a wheelchair and I'll wither away then. That's a great idea. You know what? I don't know where I'd be with that. You know, I don't know. I just don't know what would have happened, you know, so I don't know. I mean, I'm glad instantly. I was like, no, I don't, I'm just going to have to take it and just get on with it and see where we're going to end up here. And I'd done quite a lot of reading, mate, in hospital. You know, there wasn't much else to do. So I kind of read stuff on people that had gone off in life and done things. They'd done expeditions. They'd gone and just done things. And especially, you know, people tend to write books. They've got something to write about, don't they? Like, so the idea was that they were told that there's no way you will be able to do that, that you're not that kind of person and all this sort of stuff. And I think that kind of helped as well. You know, it was an outside reference I had that, yeah, well, right. I remember that guy, he got knocked back after the knockback. That lady in her book, she said that everyone was against her and no woman had ever done that before. And I think, right, I'm going to take a little bit of that. I'm going to run with it, see what happens. Because there wasn't anything else to lose, mate. You know, it was like, well, I've got nowhere else to go. And when you get to rehab and you quickly realise that you are, I mean, I was just like the bottom of the pile in a sense. You know, you've got people that are just getting on with it, and then I'm just kind of coming in, and they're like, right, we just need to make sure that you can grip a ball. And you're like, what? And they're like, right, can you just grip this ball? Can you sit up properly? Can you? And it's like going back to being a child, you know, and you've been a 30-year-old man, you know, fit, healthy and strong. And now you've got people telling you like how to literally do everything. And it kind of takes your breath away, mate. And you've got to learn to be patient very quickly. And not throw your teddies at the cot every 5 minutes when it's not working, because more often than not, mate, it's not working. There's very few glimpses of sort of positivity at the start. You know, it's all doom and gloom, you know, but you've just got to have a bit of a sense of humour, mate, and just be like, okay, I am getting nowhere fast here, but it'll happen.
Sort of any progress is better than no progress, isn't it?
Damn right, mate. Yeah, you're damn right. You know, that's the way I looked at it, mate, was every day. If I can get back to my bed at night knowing I actually did something today that I couldn't do yesterday, then that is fine. That is great.
And I think it's also, you know, when you go to these prosthetic clinics and appointments, and, you know, if everyone has an off day, everyone has a down day, you know, that's totally normal, and that, you know, that is how people function. And, you know, and you go to these prosthetic clinics and you're not short of sort of inspiration or motivation, or you know, even just amazement. You know, as you said, you would go there and you're learning how to do things completely again that would be normal, everyday, easy tasks that you wouldn't even think about. And you go to these prosthetic clinics and the rehabilitation centres. You know, I've obviously been through it a little bit as a kid, just trying to learn certain things and things like that. And you look around and it's almost a bit crude to say, but you're never the worst one there. There's always that is a bit crude to say and to think about, but you know, it's you can look around and go, well, I'm not as bad as them, but they'll equally look around and go, well, I'm not as bad as them, and you kind of, without, it's almost like an unspoken bond, without actually acknowledging it, you all sort of bounce off each other by saying, by sort of looking around and being like, right, I could have been like that, or I could have been like that, or sort of X, Y, Z, you know. And I think there's that sort of unspoken sort of connection between amputees and people with disabilities, is like, you know, you kind of use each other to bounce back and to push forward. You know, it's something in the para table tennis team, the amount of looks and stares we get because we're just absolutely like thrashing each other about each other's disabilities in public. It's like, Martin, you've got no hands. I'm like, mate, you're literally sitting in a chair for your life, and people are like, oh my god, and it's like we just use it to have a laugh and to bounce off each other because it gives you the motivation to just keep going and progress.
Mate, I honestly think that if they ever did a fly in the wall documentary of just purely what the banter is like in these places, I don't think they would have. I don't think they'd be able to air it. It's so. I mean, honestly, mate, some of the wind-ups that go on, you're like, there's no way that would ever happen anywhere else right now. It's phenomenal. Like, it's unbelievable.
It's brilliant. Disability takes no prisoners. Anyone at any stage, any race, creed, religion, whatever, can become disabled or be born disabled. And as you said, the stuff that you throw at each other is it's like a human there themselves.
Mate, it's brutal. Like, and it's almost funnier because I think the outside, if you're going to look at it on some sort of spectrum, normal people that have nothing to do with disability would think that we're a subsection of society that needs to be wrapped up in cotton wool.
Yeah.
But I think the alternative view is you go and speak to anyone with a disability and it's the other way around. It's like you look at normal people and think, I don't think you'd be able to handle it. I don't think you could deal with this, It's like, man, being in this tent is amazing. It's hilarious at times. And I've never had some of the best laughs, mate, I'll tell you, that I've ever had in my life. But I think you've got to be all right with it, because like you said, if you're the quiet guy in the corner in a rehab center and you're sort of a bit miserable in that, that's almost the worst thing to be, because people sort of like look at you and go, guess what? He needs a good ripping. That's exactly what he's going to get. And it'll be like, mate, what are you whinging about, mate? You're only missing one leg. Jeez, you need to start putting some effort in. There'll be a guy come in and he's literally got one hand. That's all he's got. He's missing two legs and an arm. And he's like, starts dishing out the lyrics, mate. And he's sort of like, you're like, wow, this is brutal. It's absolutely brilliant. But I don't think there's anywhere like it, mate, And I actually, I like it, mate. I like that. I like that kind of attitude, No one's precious.
Camaraderie, isn't it, that you must be used to?
Yeah, it is, mate. And I never thought it would be like that, I didn't think it'd be like that in a sort of rehab centre. You've got someone who's blind, and their banter is just phenomenal. They're just absolutely destroying people.
Yeah.
Because they're missing limbs and they're like, that's nothing, mate. I'm permanently playing hide and seek. And you're like, and you're like, did you just say that? And you're like, and he's like, yeah. And you're like, I can't believe you just said that. And he's like, well, what are you going to do about it? Like, and you're like, well, nothing. Like, nothing. And he's like, good, because I wouldn't be able to tell if he did. And you're like, right. And do you know when you're around that, you sort of think, brilliant, I need that. That's exactly what I need to be around, and yeah, there's nowhere like it, mate. There isn't.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. So, you were in the army for a bit of time, you've been, depending on how you're looking at, unfortunate or fortunate enough to be able to get out of what you get out of, you got blown up. And then you, for some crazy reason, decided that you were going to race to the South Pole. How the bloody heck did that come about?
Well, it was sort of, it's kind of like how we've sort of touched on, mate. I think when you get out of rehab, you're less with the people that you're not so much with those people anymore, and you're back out into sort of society. And I think it's safe to say, mate, people look at you differently because it's visual. It's a visual injury. You're missing something. You haven't got something that they've got. And what people tend to do is they generalize and go, well, if that was me, I wouldn't be able to do that. I couldn't do that. And I was sick to death, mate, of sitting around not doing anything. And I was still in the military at the time, and a lot of my mates were off working and doing what we used to do. And I was like, I'm just sitting about, I'm not doing anything. And a friend of mine got in touch and said, look, do you want to go and do a sponsored cycle and raise some money for charity, seeing as you're sitting about not doing anything? And I was like, yeah, all right. And he was the kind of person to sort of push the bar for me, mate, because I hadn't done anything like that. I hadn't been out cycling or done that with prosthetics on. But I was kind of like, look, say yes to anything, see what happens. And he was like, right, what we're going to do is we're going to cycle from Land's End to John O'Groats. And I was like, and you know, like that typical bloke thing where you sort of go, well, I'm not going to say no over text. You know, I'm not going to say, well, I don't think, because all I get is, oh, you big Jesse, like, yeah, what's the matter with you? Like, hey, you need to, like, you know. And I was like, right, I'll just say yes. And at the end of the day, we'll just see what happens. And basically what happened, mate, the turn of events that happened is like, it was just brilliant, mate. And we bumped into people on that trip, and it took us 10 days to do. And for me, when I got to the top of Scotland, I'd proved a lot of people that said that I wouldn't be able to do it wrong. You know, a lot of people said, look, you're never going to be able to do that, mate. You need to do months of training, and you need to do this and you need to do that. And that's probably true. But for me, in my situation, I wanted to do something, and I wanted to do it now. And if I fall off a bike 100 times to do it, it's not, you know, that's fine. I'll deal with that. So the overwhelming feeling I got when I got there was so good that I was like, right, I need to be pushing myself more now. I need to be doing things that I don't think I can do. And long story short, mate, I didn't do anything for a while. And again, I was sitting in the house, and this advert came out from the charity Walking with the Wounded saying that they were looking for volunteers to go to the South Pole. And my wife saw it, and she was like, you should have a look at doing that. You're looking for something to do. Why don't you put in for that? And I was like, well, I'm going to be away for a long time. And she was like, yeah, we'll just try it. Try it. You better try hard. I was like, all right. I was taking a hint, mate. I was like, all right, yeah, sure, yeah. And then, so I put in for it, and they had a big selection, because you can imagine, mate, something like that. You know, they want to put a team of people in to go to the South Pole. Every veteran with an injury wants to do it, and quite rightly so. It's a huge opportunity. And I turned up, mate, at this selection for this weekend, like a selection process. And I was the only double amputee there, mate. And I kind of had a bit of a wobble, mate. I was kind of thinking, right, if I'm the only one missing 2 limbs here and they want to ski to the South Pole, they're probably not going to be looking at me. Unless it's downhill sledging all the way, I'm probably going to nail it. You know, I'm probably awesome at that. But I was like, I don't think it's going to work. And I kind of, part of me thought, just get in the car and go home. Don't put yourself through it. You know, you can't handle the rejection. And then I was like, the other part of me was like, nah, bollocks. Like, you know, what I'll do is I'll let them tell me I'm not good enough. I'm not going to tell me I'm not good enough. And to be fair, mate, at the end of the selection process, they're like, look, we're going to perhaps give you a call back. Just wait on your phone, see what happens. And I got a call back, and I was down to the final 8 people, and they wanted 6. So we went out to Iceland to do the final selection process, and then I got into the final team, mate. And it was weird that I had a friend on there that had been to the North Pole, and he was coming to the South Pole. Single leg amputee, great bloke, Guy Disney. And because he'd done a lot of cross-country skiing as an amputee, he was quite open and honest with me and sort of said, look, mate, I don't think you're going to be able to ski. It's not going to happen. And the day that we went up to this glacier to learn how to ski, it was blowing a blizzard. And it was like, if you got off the bus, you had to stay within a few meters of the bus, or you'd be like completely engulfed in snow and wouldn't know where the hell you were. So I was like, oh, great day to learn how to ski, because standing up for me is hard enough as it is, let alone putting skis on. I'm like cutting about in a big blizzard. So we went out, and at the end of it, he was like, mate, I can't actually believe that you can ski. He's like, he goes, mate, he goes, I'm really sorry. Like, I completely thought you would be able to ski. He goes, you can ski. I'm like, yeah, it seems all right. It's actually not too bad. And he's like, right. And the sort of training went on from there. We built up the fitness and all the rest of it, went out to the South Pole, and we did the expedition. And mate, it was brilliant. It was brilliant because everything was against you. You know, it wasn't going easy on you because you've got a disability. You know, nature is, you know, it doesn't define, does it? You know, it doesn't, just because you're a different color or shape or whatever. You know, minus 30, minus 40 is cold no matter what. Yeah. And I liked it because of that. That's what I liked. You know, it was a case of get up every day, ski, look after yourself, look after your teammates. And the disability just doesn't count. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I like that.
What you said there about, so it's like minus, how cold did it get? Minus?
I think the coldest it got to was minus 40-ish, minus 45 or something like that, the coldest it got to.
Jeez,
average temperature was sort of minus 30s.
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, that's borderline sort of just north of summer in Scotland, as you know. So we're probably used to it. But I know that in the cold, for me, if it gets really cold, like as soon as it genuinely dips below sort of zero, as you'll know as well from experience, that the sockets that we wear, they're not the best insulators. And I think I deal quite well with the cold. You have to be Scottish, don't you? I deal quite well with the cold, but I find that sometimes in you know, when it's, as I said, when it's sub-zero and you know the sockets, they don't insulate you, it can get quite painful because it just feels like it's just bone just hitting into the ground, you know, because you've not got like your layers around you. On your residual limbs, you've got like your layers and layers of clothing. You can do all the gear on, but on the socket you can't do anything. So how did you cope with that? Because for me, I'm thinking that sounds like a great experience, but all I can think of is that stump or those stumps are going to be absolute agony.
Yeah, mate. Well, so what we did was a lot of the stuff, the South Pole was unknown. So exactly what you say. I mean, all sockets are made from is carbon fiber, titanium. You know, you wear a silicon sock. It's basically all just sucks the cold or the heat out of your body. So we did a bit of testing, and beforehand we went to like a car testing place in Nuneaton, and they put the temperature in this chamber. We stayed in there for 24 hours, the whole British team, and they put the temperature down to like minus 48, and it was just to see the effects of what would happen. And this guy was stood there with a thermal imaging camera, and he was just basically looking at me, shaking his head, and he was just like, right, something's not right here. So they got our doctor that was looking after us. They pulled me out, and they put these stick-on thermometers on the bottom of my stumps. And like, he's just like, right, mate, your stumps are so cold at the minute that there's the blood and everything that's starting to crystallize. You know, you're starting to basically, you know, get a cold weather injury. Wow. Because the circulation and all the rest of it, and you're just like, we really need to get on top of this. So we'd heat the stumps up again, get them up to body temperature, go back in, same thing had happened. And we're like, what the hell are we going to do? Because you just can't have that for 9 hours skiing a day, you know, for X amount of weeks in the South Pole. It's not going to happen. So we went into it, we had a look about, and it's really crude, mate. Basically, all we did was get like insulating material and just insulate my sockets. But the guy that made my sockets for the South Pole, what he did was at the very bottom of my prosthetic sockets, he built in like a layer of insulation, and then covered that with carbon fiber. And that made just a huge difference. I mean, we're only talking probably 3/4 of an inch of insulation, but it made a massive difference. It just stopped the heat being sucked out of your body. And I had no problems, mate, in the South Pole with it, because I think as well, you know, it helped that it was 24 hours sunlight as well. So you've got that radiation factor of the sun. You know, there's plenty of radiation about this heat. You wouldn't think it at the time, but it wasn't too bad. You know, and it certainly never was an issue when I was down there. I never used to think, God, they're getting pretty cold. Nothing at all. So it worked. You know, it definitely worked.
That's incredible. I've never even thought of having like insulated lined sockets. You know, because thankfully I've never needed them.
That is true. It's one of those things, isn't it, that you kind of you make that leap when you need it, but before that, you sort of think, well, it's not, you know, it's not a problem, because, you know, it's like on the other end of the spectrum when you wear sockets, you're always sweating, like you're always like, you know, your sockets are like quite hot and sweaty and stuff like that. And then that was a factor too, because if you're pushing out the mileage down there and your stumps start to sweat, when you stop, you've got to dry them off, because if you don't, the sweat starts to freeze. You know, it's once you get into like a routine of it all.
How did you combat that?
Fine, but
when I'm in training, like for table tennis, I've got a socket on my right arm. That's how I play. I put a socket on the right arm and I can play and try my best, as they say. And then obviously the leg. But then you finish a 2.5 hour session and you literally turn the sockets upside down, and it's like it's minging.
Oh, mate. Yeah.
You know, it's absolutely minging. Like they just like. Anyway, so how do you, as you said, you've got to manage that on the South Pole, because with all the sweat in there, even with the insulation, that's just like fresh liquid that's going to freeze in no time. So are you constantly stopping, toweling down, having to obviously strip off to get the legs off? To like, is that not just like an absolute ball ache?
It was, mate. Basically, what we used to do was you would, because it was tipped as a race to begin with, but it wasn't really. It was just a case of get to the South Pole as quick as you can. What we did was we worked out that if we knock out 3 hours skiing in the morning off the bat, when you're at your freshest, you know, you've had a good night's kip, sort of, and you've had like a decent amount of food, you're at your freshest of the day. So you smash out 3 hours. And then you stop for 15, 20 minutes to take on some fluids, eat some food, and then you batter on for another 2 hours. And then likewise, you do that 15, 20 minutes again, another 2 hours. So what I used to do was, as soon as I stopped, I would whip my sockets off, take my liners off, dry them, and then put them back on. And after that sort of first 3 hours, I don't know why, I just found that the sweating and all the rest of it would reduce quite significantly. And it just seemed to tail off the rest of the day as you were going. And it just seemed to like sort of calm down a little bit. And the last sort of leg of the day, if you like, by the time you get to the point where you stop, put your tent up. So there's a flurry of activity. You know, you're rushing about, trying to get your tent up. Once the tent's up, you get inside, get the cookers on, get some heat in the tent, warm up a little bit, strip off, dry off. It was again like a flurry of activity, so you sweat again, but you're in that, you know, you can actually get the liners off, then dry yourself off properly, and it kind of worked like that, really. It wasn't too bad, but you know, other things that I've done where heat has been a factor, that was a different kettle of fish, you know. And I kind of worked out a way of kind of wicking the sweat out of the liners. Like you can get like I think you can get them for any sort of size, really, but it's almost like a tight material, you know, like sort of like a set of tights, if you like. It's really, really thin. And I'd put that over my stump, then I'd put my liner on. And what used to happen was it kind of wicked the sweat up the liner out of the top. and it kind of like it kind of made the sweat come out the top of the liner, and so then you're not kind of swimming about in a horrible kind of liner where it's, oh, mate, it's like wearing a pair of wet welly boots. Like it's
when
just
when you've got puddles in your socket, there's nothing worse. You know, you feel it squelching as you're walking around. It's horrible. It's horrible. But my only takeaway from that,
mate, it's terrible. Like, yeah, like the Rocky Horror Picture Show, me. I'm like cutting about in a set of tights, mate. Cross-dresser. But I tell you what, mate, it does work. Yeah.
You touched on, obviously you've done some super hot weather stuff as well, and just before we jump onto that, you mentioned, it's just one quick, just out of genuine curiosity about the South Pole, you mentioned that it's 24-hour sunlight. So how do you get to sleep in that?
So what you tend to do is when you get to the South Pole, you work out your own sort of 24 hours, if that makes sense, because you can make up pretty much any kind of time. And then you go into like a South Pole time, and then when you break up the day, so we would do like a 9 hours ski, would stop, and then you get into like a routine for your sort of rest period. So you get in your tent, you're scheduling a few hours kip and all the rest of it. I'm giving a bad sort of representation of myself here, but like the like sleeping masks you get, the proper, like, you get a few of them, mate, and you just wear a sleeping mask and like you'd bang them on, mate, and away you go. So be in a tent with a pair of tights on and a sleeping mask, just living the dream, mate. But it was I tell you what was get my nails done. But do you know what was weird about that was there was two of us in a tent. So you go on one side, I go on the other. And when you go to sleep, you'd either wake up or either on the cold side of the tent or the hot side of the tent, depending on what way the sun was moving around. So you get a bit of radiation coming through the tent, and you'd either wake up raging because you're on the cold side and you'd be absolutely freezing cold, or you'd be loving life because you're on the hot side and you're like, oh, this is great, it's phenomenal. So you had to kind of like take it in turns, But yeah, it was. I mean, it wasn't, and you're exhausted as well. You're absolutely exhausted, like. So so you just kind of black out, mate, and you have a real solid sleep.
Once you reach the South Pole, how do you get out?
Well, mate, we reached the South Pole and we were like full of it. We were chuffed to bits. We were just like, oh, this is amazing. Look what we've done. There's a big weather station there, the big South Pole station. And we got there and they're like, we kind of knocked on the door thinking we'll probably get a nice cup of tea off them or something. And they just kind of looked at us and were like, what do you want? And we're like, we've just skied like 200 miles and all that. And they're like, right, well, this is a clean air zone here. And we're detecting, we're doing all this monitoring and all this sort of like specky, geeky stuff. You can't stay here in your tents. You need to now ski 18 kilometers back the way you came and get out of our zone. And you're like, what? So I kind of took the shine off it a little bit, mate. And we kind of tried to pimp out Prince Harry. So we were like, but we've got royalty here. We've got Prince Harry. And they're like, yeah, he's going to have to go as well. And you're like, right, okay, thanks for that. So you like moonwalk back 18 kilometers, mate, and put your tents up. We're like, right, we won't bother you then. So we had to like get flights back. So they would land these aeroplanes on skis at the South Pole station, and you have like an EasyJet, if you like, and just jump on with all your kit, get back down to where you started, down at the coastline, and then you get a flight out, it's like a big Russian kind of aeroplane that does all the cargo flights in and out. Just jump on that back to Cape Town, mate.
That's incredible.
That was brilliant. It was brilliant, mate.
So as I said at the start of this chat, I was interested because you seem like an absolute lunatic, and that's because I said you've done the South Pole, and then you did the exact opposite and went for a wee jog in the Sahara.
Yeah, I know.
I say a wee jog. I'll let you sort of tell the story of the Marathon des Sables. But yeah, I'm so intrigued to hear this myself, actually.
Well, so what we did was the charity put in a team every year. So it's like if you want to run the London Marathon, you know, a good way of doing it is to align with a charity. They'll give you a charity space, and off you go. Brilliant. So the charity did that as well with something called the Marathon des Sables, which is it's in Morocco, and it's an ultra marathon. So the entire distance of the ultra marathon is 150 something miles. I think it changes slightly every year, but it's broken down into marathon blocks. So you do a marathon every day for 5 days, but one of those days is a double marathon. So you do 56 miles in, but you've got 30 odd hours to complete that. So, well, basically, I was looking at that, mate, and I was like, I'd love to go and do something like that. Really kind of test my mettle. And it's a good fundraiser, if, not never taken away from people's fundraising efforts ever. But for me, if I'm asking for someone to give me some money for doing something, I want to make sure they're thinking, I want this guy to actually do that. I want to see him do this. That's going to be a bit of a story. So I thought I'd like to go and do it. So I approached the charity and said, look, any chance I could do it. And I'd just done the London Marathon with my mate, one of my best mates from in the military, and we'd kind of talked about it on the way around. And I sort of said, look, if I can get a space, would you sort of come as my kind of carer, or kind of my sort of guy, lackey? And he was like, yeah, cool, I'm up for that. Like, you can carry me around. And I approached the charity, and they said, yeah, all right then, okay, we'll let you do it. Like, if you want a space, we'll give you a space. So I did. But then we had to approach the people that run the race and sort of say, look, there's a guy coming who, who's got a disability and so on. We're just letting you know, just as sort of courtesy type thing. And they sort of basically said, yeah, no, you can't do it. He's not allowed. And we were sort of like, I'm sort of, skipping over a lot of emails here, but we were like, why? And they were like, well, because he might hurt himself. And I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense. Because I know exactly. And I'm like, well, if I fall over in the desert, I'll look as stupid as anyone else does. So what do you mean? And we were like, that's not floating the boat here. I was like, no way. Like, and eventually they said, right, you can come, but if something happens, it's on your own head. And I was like, well, that's what I want anyway. I'm not going to stand there and say, well, you never said it was going to be this hot. What do you want me to say? So that was fine. We got the sort of permission to go. And this was back in 2016. And we went out there, and I had the sort of comfiest prosthetics that I could get at the time. I did as much training as I could. But ultimately, mate, I didn't have anyone to speak to say, as an amputee, what's it like covering 26 miles across the desert? What's it like doing that for 5 or 6 days? There's no reference. So I thought I'll just go with it, see what happens. So we went, and I did the first 3 days. So I did the first 3 marathons. On the next day, it was the double marathon. So we had 56 miles to do. And what they typically do is send you up and over this big sandy jebel, like a big old sandy hill, and it's a whopper, like it's a beauty. And as you look at it, mate, it just looks like looking up a wall of sand, mate. And it's hard to walk up a sand dune, isn't it? Let alone and I was thinking, okay, just grit the old teeth and get on with it here. And we were about 10 kilometers in at this point. I got up there, and as I got to the top of it, I sort of sat down at the very top just to get a bit of a breather. And I just felt all this fluid. We were saying about all the sweat coming out the top the liner, I just could feel all this fluid, mate, coming out the top of the liner. And I was like, oh, I must have sweat coming up there. Because it is hot, it's like 40 degrees, mate, getting toward 50 degrees. And as I rubbed the back of it, it was red. And I was like, right, that's not good. And it was my front of my shins, mate, they felt like they were on fire. Yeah. And I was thinking, right, I've got 30 odd, possibly, 40 odd miles to go here. And I was like, right, I don't really know what to do. And because I was doing it for charity, that was kind of weighing on my mind. I was like, I'm not going to, just bin it and I go, I can't do it. So we just carried on and carried on and carried on. And we walked all through the night, all through the day. And we got over the line. So I had one marathon left to do, but I was like, I can't walk. I'm in a lot of pain. And they took me to the medical tent and we took my liners off and I had to do it myself. I peeled them off. And as I peeled them off, basically all the skin on the front of my shin bones were peeling off with a liner. They'd kind of just, they were starting to come off. And do you know when you've just got that horrible, that painful, I don't know what I'm going to do. And this French, because it's all French run, this French medic is standing there and he's saying something in French and he's standing at the end of my bed looking at me. And I said to someone, oh, what did he say? And this lady was like, oh, he says he doesn't know how to fix you. So I was quite quick on the uptake and I went, well, if he's waiting for them to grow back, it's not going to happen. and the lady started laughing. The lady started chuckling, and this medic's looking what did he say? And she's like, I'm not gonna tell him what you said. And I was like, oh, right, okay, fair enough. And so basically, mate, I was like, look, I can't put my liners back on. I can't walk. It's not gonna happen. So I had to give up. I had to sort of say, look, I can't do the last marathon here. It's not gonna happen. I was gutted, mate. I was potentially going to be the first double amputee to do it, which I think is good because other amputees look and go, right, if he's done that, then that's a possibility that I can do that. So I always think that's quite an important thing to do. Yeah. But I had to give up and I came back to the UK and the media had sort of given a couple of interviews and this guy was waiting for me when I got back to my house. And really nice bloke. And he was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I was like, well, I'll get sorted and I'll go again. And he's like, he was like, come on, you're not going to go again. And I was like, yeah, I'll go again. I think I can do it. He was like, okay. And I sat there for a while, mate, and I worked out all the things that didn't really work properly. There was a lot of things. I wasn't as fit enough, mate, as it should have been. Yeah, from a cardio point of view, I just wasn't. And I hold my hands up for that. I think strength-wise, I probably wasn't strong enough. And I think I was carrying a little bit too much weight as well. I was carrying a bit of timber, mate. And my kit and equipment just wasn't as good as it should have been. So I thought, right, I can fix everything. I can fix all these things. It's not a problem. But the only thing I can't fix is the prosthetics. I can't make a set of prosthetics. So you can't go to a prosthetist and just say, right, no offense, mate, but the ones you made me really hurt. What about these ones? Because you're pushing prosthetics to the point where I suppose they're not really meant to be worn in that way for that duration in those heats and all the rest of it. So it's a little bit of an off-piste kind of situation. But randomly, this was I don't know what even the chances of this happening were, mate. I met this guy out in Morocco before we came home, this Italian bloke, Dino, lovely guy. And we exchanged details because he was a photographer. He used to write for a running magazine and he interviewed me and stuff. And he was like, oh, this is really interesting, And anyway, I never thought anything of it. And about 2 or 3 weeks after I got back to the UK, I had an email from him saying, hope you're all right, healing up and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, mate, all good. And he, oh, thanks. He goes, mate, I've got a bit of a random question for you. He goes, there's a company out in Italy that make prosthetics. And I told them about you and they'd really like to make you a set of legs so you can do that thing in the desert again. And I was like, right. okay. And it was almost like someone speaking that obviously didn't know anything about prosthetics. They said, oh, they can whip you something up, mate. It's no problem. And I was like, do they know what it entails? Like, did they know, you know? And he was like, yeah, it's the Italian solution. And that's what he called it, the Italian solution. And I was like, okay. And basically what I did was I spoke to my wife, Kim, and I sort of said, what do you think? And she's like, well, just go and find out. Just get on an easy jet, get out there, have a look. What's the worst that can happen? I was like,
Yeah, you're nothing to lose.
yeah, mate, why not? So I went out there, and I went out there for 5 days, and we basically we talked. So they obviously fluent Italian. You know, they can't really speak English. I can't speak Italian. You know, shock. And so we just talked to each other through Google Translate all week. So it's there for 5 days, like going out for meals and all that. Like, you know, how's the meal? Good. How are you? Good. You know, and it was mega. And I ended up with a set of legs. And what they used to do was the guy made this way of casting a socket, right? And it wasn't the normal way of you sit down, they put your liner on and they wrap a bit of plaster around and all that. He was like, that doesn't work as well as if you can do it under load. If you can stand up and you can actually put your stump into something where it pressurizes and it pushes all the meat on your stump into where it is under load, then that's the best way to do it. So I was like, okay, we get it. And he took a cast, mate, and literally a couple of hours after taking the cast, I was wearing the finished article.
Wow.
And I'd never worn anything as comfortable in my life. And I was like, where's the punchline? You know, we're gonna have to reduce it. You're gonna have to wear a sock. You're gonna have to do that. And he was like, no, this is it. I was like, okay. So the reason I was there for 5 days was they made me the 2 sockets and I tested them for 5 days. And I just went about and I just walked and walked and walked through Italy, just everywhere, you know, just through the little towns and all the rest of it, just walking about constantly. And I was, in the end, I was jumping off curbs, right? I was just jumping, just like they can't be this comfortable all the time. Surely after the first day, it's going to get a little bit, you know, right, okay, it's a little bit sore after an hour. There was nothing. And I was like, and he goes, right, I'm going to make you a set, take them back to the UK, wear them for 3 weeks or a month or whatever, come back, and then we'll make you the finished articles. And I was like, right. So he made me check sockets out of plastic, you know, the sort of clear plastic ones, right? So obviously you've got to be careful because, you know, if you do too much in them, there's the potential of you can break them, smash them, and all the rest of it. I was like, nah, I want to be sure that these work. So I put my running blades on the bottom of them, and I went out and ran on them, and I did 5 miles every day. Right, I've never ran that far in my life. I was just like, no, I'm just going to see what they're like, and I did 5 miles every day just to see. I mean, we're not talking quick; we're just talking like, you know, probably just a little bit more than walking pace. And I tell you what, mate, I couldn't fault them. I was like, these are amazing. These are brilliant. So I got back out to Italy, got the finished ones, and genuinely, I'm still wearing the same ones now that I got then. So that was 2016. And I wear the same ones. And I did the Marathon des Sables the second time in the same ones I'm wearing now. And genuinely, the next time I went out to do the Marathon des Sables, it was completely different, mate. It was awesome. It was enjoyable, as much as it can be. You know, obviously it's difficult, but it was enjoyable. And I never felt I was a disabled guy doing something. I was just like, this is hard. It's really hard, but it's great. You know, it's good. It's what it should be like. So when I came back to the UK, I was like, I'd love other people to have the opportunity to get these sockets. You know, just to try. You know, even if they say, well, they're not quite right for me. Okay, fine. And people, I took pictures on my stumps at the end of doing the Marathon des Sables, right? Because I thought, no one's going to believe that I didn't even get a blister. No one's going to have that. And people wouldn't believe that that was a picture of my stumps. In the end, you couldn't convince people. People were like, nah, there's no way that. And I was like, honestly, I promise you. But it was great, mate. And I just felt like maybe it kind of helped in another way. You know, if you can push on technology and, you know, people can then start going, hang on, if he's done that, I want to do that. That's what I want to do, you know, and I think that's a good thing, you know. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's incredible. I mean, the best legs are the ones that you don't know you're wearing. You know, it's, you said, to have something that, like, I think the legs that I've got are pretty damn comfortable. You know, I've got no real complaints, but sometimes over, you know, you'll know what it's like, even as someone that's, I mean, pretty much a long time user now, aren't you? It's been, what, 7 years, something like that, since you...
Yeah. 10,
yeah.
Coming up 10, yeah.
Or coming up 10, sorry. So you're a long time user, but you know, you still get days where your stump will just slightly be a different size or something, you know. So you get, I mean, I get the little rubs here and there, and to have something that fits like a glove, that's the dream. That's the dream, you know. So this technique, I watched a video on, it was one of your videos on last night, about you. It was in Italy, and you know, you got it was like an air compression pump.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
And it was incredible, but I've never seen that in the UK. Is it something that is in the UK? Or?
Right. Well, okay. So I've got to be careful about getting on my soapbox here, mate. But so my point of view is, if something works and it's comfortable and it benefits the user, then that's the right answer. You know, that is the right thing. So when I came back from the Marathon des Sables, I thought, right, I'm not sitting on this information. I need to know other amputees can benefit from this. That would be the best scenario. Are you the guy that did the Marathon des Sables? Yeah, but also, you know, we managed to get that technology out to other people. And I cannot tell you, mate, how hard it is approaching the NHS, private clinics, all these different places to try and get them to just look at it. Now, the thing is, the guy in Italy that had this stuff, he's been using that in Italy for years. That's all he uses. And I know the way that Italy's NHS is configured is completely different, or their version of the NHS is different to ours. I understand that. And I also understand you can't just knock on the door of the NHS and say, I've got a great idea. Can you do this? There's got to be checking. You have to ensure that it's the right thing. But basically, mate, they just said, no, we're not interested. And I was like, hang on, potentially saving millions of pounds here, because if I've had the same sockets for 4 or 5 years and they're still comfortable,
that's almost
I'm saving you. I'm saving you thousands of pounds here. You know, you're not having to remake sockets at £1,000 a time or £500 a time, whatever it is. Yeah. I thought, surely that's a good thing, right? And they're like, yeah, well, we don't really do it like that. So okay. So I thought, I'm not taking that. I'm not having that. That's not a good enough answer. So I went to private clinics. They had a look at it and they were like, yeah, we're quite interested in this. It seems quite interesting. And then we started up our own clinic, right, in Watford. We just kind of thought, you know what, let's do it ourselves and just see what happens. And we had a few people in, and before he had his osseointegration, you know, Mickey Yule, we had some really sort of high intensity users come in, because we thought we don't just want an easy amputee to come in and just get something, go, yeah, that works. You want someone with a complicated stump. They've got scar tissue. They've got problems. Yeah. If we can have a good result with them guys, then that's a good thing. So after about eight or 9 months, we kind of ran out of money, and we had people coming in that got sorted out, which was brilliant. We run a thing called the Big Life Fix. We had people come in and do that. But then I went to the House of Lords. And I thought, right, I'm going to go at them and ask, you know, what's the score here? And I spoke to a lovely lady there, a baroness, and she put us in touch with a study that was going on. about prosthetic provision in the UK, in the NHS. And mate, it was harder to tap into than anything. They just basically didn't answer the emails, didn't answer phone calls. And we just basically got shut down, mate, and it became no more. So long story short, we tried and tried, and to no avail. It was pretty depressing, really, mate.
Yeah, no, that sounds pretty tough, because as I said, I know what it's like when you get a great socket. There's almost no better feeling, and to not have that available for patients here in the UK, especially when you've campaigned so much. As you said, you would save thousands and thousands of pounds. The amount of times that I've went to get fitted for a new socket, you do the check socket, which for those that don't know about prosthetic is what it says on the tin. It's a check socket. It's basically an almost final version of what you're going to wear, and you do a final check on it to make sure it fits. Then you come back in usually a week or 10 days time, and they've got the final product made. And the amount of times I've went through the initial fitting, check socket, you get to the final product, it doesn't fit because you've changed already.
Yeah.
Or it's just
it breaks you.
And if you've got something that's you're basically vacuum packing your leg, aren't you?
Exactly right.
And you can't go wrong with that. It's literally sucked onto your leg. So, that's that, I can understand. That's obviously a tough. Loving the mug, by the way, frozen, very stylish.
My wife just made me this, and I'm sure she did that on purpose.
I'm
guaranteed to do that on purpose.
I hope your mates from the army see this and absolutely rip you one for having a Disney Frozen mug.
Mate, I tell you what, it's not the mug, it's the dressing up. It's the.
That's the fun part.
It is, mate. That is the only downside, mate. Is I had these, I suppose, visions of grandeur, mate. I kind of thought, oh man, if I can walk across 156 miles of desert and not have a problem, people are going to go, right, how do we get that? And it just didn't happen. And we haven't given up. One of the guys who was working with, he's now out in Australia. Their prosthetics, sort of the way they do prosthetics is a little bit more free thinking. So he's looking at trying to get the ball rolling out there. But ultimately, mate, the guy in Italy still has his clinic, and I've managed to sort of, get people out to go and have a go out there and try that, and it's worked out. Sometimes it has to be part funded or whatever, but
yeah,
mate, at the end of the day, I'm happy to save up money and pay for my prosthetics. Obviously it's a lot of money, but I know
that private prosthetics aren't cheap, but mate, if it gives you that comfort and that peace of mind, knowing that it's going to do the exact job, I totally understand it. I totally understand it. It makes complete sense. And as you said, sometimes it's about saving those pennies. To get the leg that you want, it makes such a huge difference. So obviously this year's been difficult for everyone, and it's the last thing I want to talk about is all the nonsense that's been happening. So I'm not going to talk about it because I'm sick of talking about it. What's next for you? Because you've done, you've raced the South Pole, you've done the Marathon des Sables, pretty much twice. Obviously you pulled out on the final day of the first attempt. You've done incredible things, So what's next? Are you doing some sort of spacewalk or something?
It's funny you mentioned space, mate. So I did during the lockdown. We ended up doing a lot of Skype talks and talks on Microsoft Teams and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of got to the point where it was the 10-year anniversary of the charity this year, and the intention was to go and do the Marathon des Sables again. And it was just kind of, I think, just to kind of do it one more time, raise some money, and that's kind of it. But obviously, with, like you said, with the coronavirus and all that, it was never going to happen. So that got put massively on the back burner. And I kind of started to look at myself, mate, and just sort of think, like, where am I? Like, what am I going to, I can, but I can't keep doing expeditions, mate. I've got to find something. I've not really worked the grey matter for a long time. And one of the talks I did to Kyle on Avanti, it was actually one of the sort of warm up talks before we did the talk. He was just kind of sounding me out and having a bit of a chit chat and stuff. And he was like, right, so obviously I'm going to finish off with what's next. And I was like, I thought, well, be honest. I was like, I don't know. I don't really know what the future lies, mate. I need to start looking at employment. I want to do a job because, I think it would be good, to get a job that you enjoy and all the rest of it. And he was like, right. He was like, well, I wasn't really expecting that. I was expecting you're going to go off and do this, that, and the other. And I was like, well, I probably will go and do expeditions now and then, but not to the same degree, because ultimately it's time away from home. And, I've got a little one, and I don't, as much as you like doing all these things, mate, it's still time away from your loved ones. And I've kind of learned to really sort of capitalise on that, mate, and not, if you don't have to be away, don't. So he was like, right, well, let's have a chat. And, so I've started actually working for those guys, doing a job as a sort of project manager, which I'll tell you, mate, it's harder than any expedition. Like, getting my grey matter working again, mate, I'll tell you, it's like, oh, mate, I'll tell you, it's that has been like the biggest learning curve ever. But they're great, they're kind of like just kind of learn and get stuck in, and that has been quite an eye opener for me. It's something I haven't, I've tried working over the past 10, 11 years while being injured, and I've just not found something that I like. It's something I don't fit into. But this is quite different. I really enjoy it. So that's kind of where I'm at the minute, mate.
Brilliant. Well, at least you're enjoying it. That's the main thing. That's half the battle with any sort of employment. It's doing something that you enjoy. And I think it's something that I try and get the message over as well. It's if you do a job, obviously my job is to play table tennis. And if you do a job that you enjoy, then it makes it so much easier. And that's irregardless of finance, it's irregardless of opportunity, it's irregardless of everything. It's the fact that you're in an environment that you enjoy being in, and it just makes the work so much easier, And obviously I know Kyle at Avanti, and it's a great team there, and they're so friendly, and everyone's great, and that makes it so much easier as well. The fact that you've got such a team of like-minded people that are obviously very serious about what they do, but they're open for a laugh, have fun, and it's getting away from this 9 to 5, put your head down, I'm going to go to work and blah blah blah. It's that, I'm going to go to work, I'm going to go enjoy it, and it's that's a massive difference. So
you're right.
Yeah, so just a massive thank you for an hour and a half of your day.
Oh, mate, God, sorry, buddy. I didn't feel like an hour and a half to me, mate.
I'm so glad you suggested moving it earlier, because I'm sure we'd have got cut off at some point, because I know you've got stuff to do. Thank you so much. It's been an incredible story to share. Wow, what an incredible episode of PerryPOD there with Duncan Slater, an incredible human being who's achieved some fantastic things. He's went from the South Pole to being in the middle of the desert. He was in Afghanistan in Helmand province, where he lost both his legs, and just shares that incredible mindset, resilience, determination to push on and achieve fantastic things. And I hope that he can bring the prosthetic equipment that he has seen and helped be a part of in Italy to the UK, and help so many other prosthetic users over here. But I wish Duncan all the best for his future endeavours at Avanti and whatever he moves on to. But what an incredible chat, a superb guy, and just an all-round great person to be around and to know. So I hope that you've taken inspiration from Duncan's stories, and you can push on and go on and achieve what you want to achieve as well. But because if we look at what he's done, there really is no barrier except what's in between your ears, and he's used that mentality, that resilience and that mindset to push on and not let it hold him back. So thank you for watching another episode of PerryPOD. Thank you for listening to another episode of PerryPOD. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I'm sure that we can bring more fantastic episodes to you like Duncan's story.